Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back. It is going on the first day of August 2015, and we are going to be concentrating this weekend on the Discovery. This is where we are now. This model, as cumbersome as it is, means I may not be able to do all of it in this room. I might have to move it around various places to get various chunks of it done, but got most of this section complete. I've got to putty up some seams and then give it a good primer coat, and it'll be done. And then we'll continue on with the rest of it. The other project for this weekend that I can be doing in downtime between all of this is to finish up the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost busts from Shaun of the Dead. They're mostly done. I just need to give the flesh a good, or skin a good one more once over, and touch up some details and paint these eyes. But that's what's on tap for this weekend, so strap yourselves down. It's going to be another fun ride. It is Wednesday evening, and I am working on the engine pod part of the Discovery. I have stripped the spinal parts off of the steel rod, and they're sitting right next to it. But here's where I'm addressing the issue. First of all, I did a bit of corrective surgery. I realized I had these things on backwards. I had this big chunk on towards the back instead of towards the front. That's what you get for not knowing the subject all that intimately. And one panicked view on the internet confirmed that I had them on wrong. When in doubt, go to Scott Alexander's Captain Cardboard Atomic City website. He is the man for all things 2001. So a quick check with that confirmed my fears. Yes, I had these on backwards, so I had to get out the chipper and knock these off. Luckily, I had not glued this top piece on, but I had to pry these off and resand them and then re-superglue them in the right orientation. And now I'm kind of working on these engines, and I'm stuck with a bit of a problem because they're not quite big enough. And what I mean by that is, if you put the engines where they are supposed to go, they do not touch each other, and they are supposed to touch in the back. To make them touch, I have to squeeze them together like that, which is no good. So I'm going to have to end up cheating them in slightly. I put the center one in the center, but cheat the other ones in slightly left and to the right to make that work. Okay, we're going to wrap up the engines for tonight. It's still Wednesday night, and I've got these screwed and glued down. I took a little bit of artistic license. I hope the purists out there won't eviscerate me too badly, but I wanted the continuous look of the three engines, but still having them parallel without having to cheat them in, so I put little spacers between them. I hope that does not overly offend. I'm trusting that once it's painted, these will all but disappear. But I really wanted that straight across look. So there you go. Good morning, it's Saturday, and it's time to put some paint on some models. And we're going to start with the Discovery. Everything has gotten a nice base coat of the Duplicolor primer sealer, and now I'm going to be experimenting with the best way of putting the white on. I don't want to plaster the white. I've seen paintings, builds of this model where the model has simply been painted, no pun intended, a monolithic white, and that's fine, but it's boring. What I want to do is put a light coat of white on this, because especially at the smaller scale, the detail, if you plaster white over everything, you're just going to lose all this detail. On the 11-foot model of this that I've seen, that again, the Yoda of Discovery building, Scott Alexander, Captain Cardboard, please check him out. He is excellent. He paints his, now he's got subtle grays in the command module, but I've seen him do the spine pieces, particularly just a white, at least from what I can tell on the videos. And because the model is so big, you still see all the detail. Well, on the smaller scale, I'm afraid if I just do a white over everything, you're going to lose a lot of detail. So what I'm going to do is do a misting of white over this and see if that is the answer that I want. I'm starting with the Tamiya white. If I end up using Tamiya for this whole thing, I'm going to have to get like probably 5 more of these because this is a huge kit. So I'm going to try that, and then if this doesn't work, then I may try the big rattle can of the sandable primer white, which might also work. But let me try this and see how it looks. Okay, using this antenna module as a test guinea pig. This is I'm sure, I don't know how well the subtlety is playing here. This is the primer coat. This is the light dusting of white over top of it. You can see there is a difference. It is whiter than it was before. Maybe you can tell on the top module there is whiter than the other 3. But since I am not getting down into every little nook and cranny, you're still seeing a lot of shadow lines and detail. That's the goal. That's what I'm looking to do. And then I'm going to come back in with some templates and then just hit this with maybe a light gray here or there. And by varying the pressure on the white, I can create whiter spots. And that also helps to sell the idea of depth and texture and detail. Okay, we have a bunch of spinal pieces painted. Now, of course, the danger in doing these individually like this is to make sure that you are putting an equal coat of white over all of the pieces so that they all look like they were built at the same time. And to do that, what I'm going to do is let these all dry, and then I'm going to line them up next to each other, put them in a bunch, and hit any ones that are still a little bit darker with another coat, and kind of let them be unified that way. I don't want them, like I said, I don't want the monolithic look, but I also don't want, one dark piece in the middle of all of the other nice light gray ones. So I'll let them even up, let them dry, and then because what's underneath them, I put a good primer coat on it, but you never can tell. Sometimes paint absorbs different densities, and you want to make sure that everything's dried in real good and tight before you do any touch-ups, just in case something is taking a little bit longer to soak in. So I'm going to let these dry for a good while, maybe go out and do some yard work. It's Saturday after all, and the yard is a demanding taskmaster. It demands to be cut every week. So I'm going to let these dry and come back to them a little bit later and see if they need any evening up. I'm also going to make an executive decision, since there seems to be a lot of a repeated pattern in all of these shapes, like this piece of grating, or let me get a better pointy device. Like this piece of grating seems to be repeated a lot, and there's another piece here that seems to be repeated a lot. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arbitrarily pick something like that and say, okay, every time I see one of these, I'm going to paint it a little bit grayer or a little bit whiter than the rest, just to give it that unified look. I like the way that the paint is catching the shadow lines, and it is, I'm still seeing down into the detail, and I don't want to obliterate that by putting a bunch of paint on it, but I do want to break up the look a little bit, and I'm thinking that just by picking something unified like that and doing it all over will give it a better sense of uniformity, for lack of a better term. Okay, yard work all done for today, and before I go out to lunch, what I did is I took a very light coat of the white sandable primer and sprayed all over this back plate, the engine compartment, to get a base coat of white on it. And I'm just bringing it in here to check it against the white of the spine pieces that I've painted to make sure that it's not any whiter than that. Now, this is not as heavy a coat of white as I put on the spine pieces, but basically all I wanted to do was to give it a good foundation so that I could go over it with the white Tamiya that I used on the spine without breaking the bank on having to buy a ton of white Tamiya. So basically the white sandable primer is a base coat, and I'll take the white Tamiya with the airbrush and get into the spots that I couldn't get into with the rattle can without, you know, over layering or over plastering. So that's a base coat, and it's a money saver and a time saver. Okay, here's our patient. If you can see him stretched out, head at this end, tail at this end. I've got to make some sort of base for him. The two little, that comes with the bases that look like this, little monoliths that they sit at two different, I guess two different load points on the ship, and it sits up on them. It's a nice idea, but I don't think it's quite right. I don't know how well it's going to work. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make some wire hanger type of things, and I'm going to suspend it, but at 3 different points, one there, one about center, and one behind the neck, and just raise it up off of that board. So what I'm doing now is I went out and got a 1x6 at Lowe's that's got a nice clear, no warp shape to it, and I'm just making some measurements as to where my supports are going to go, and ultimately where it needs to be cut off. It needs if I make it the same size as the kit itself, then right about here is where I need to cut it off. You know, a model's big when you have to take several steps to get from one end of it to the other. So what I'm going to do is mark this for the length, and then I'll have to cut that part off with a chop saw, and then I'm going to mark it for the structural support points, and measure off and see whereabouts that where the antenna module sits, because I want to go just to the front of that, I believe. So wish me luck. Okay, everything looks like it's lining up. I've got some wire coat hangers drilled and stuck into the wood with a little bit of a bend at the top that the metal rod is sitting on, and everything is coming out kind of nice and even. It's actually bowing up in the center slightly, and that's because of the weight that is on the front end and the weight that's on the back end, and that's kind of unavoidable. But I think I'm going to try to do something that actually pulls this down in the center. Maybe the instead of going from a support underneath, maybe this loop will actually come over the top and kind of force it back down to level it in the center. But see what happens when you bounce your Discovery. And I need, at the same time, I can do something to anchor it to keep it from doing this, because it wants to rock back and forth. It's just sitting very loosely on the top of those supports. And if I do something to anchor it, to square it off, more is the better. And I'm going to paint it monolith black, of course. But there's your view down, zooming down the edge. And of course the spine pieces that are on the back there are just for show and for spacing. Those are not the correct ones in the correct place. But I wanted to see where the AE35 unit, the Discovery's antenna, that module is in their correct place, and I've marked that on the spine rod so that I can relocate that when I need to. And I needed to see how this joint worked so that I could see where the support needs to be. So you can see let me pick this up. It's just simply sitting on that loop that's made from a heavy gauge coat hanger. So what I want to do, see that's the problem. I want to nail it down, keep it from doing that. So I'm thinking that I need to run another loop like this, only down over the top to actually hold that in place. And here's the third support. It goes over the top of the, instead of underneath it, I can actually tie it down and epoxy it at a certain depth. So that's going to help to level out that spine. I know it's not much to look at, but here is the shelf slash base for the Discovery. I have having to take the spine apart now to work on it some more, but here is the slab with the two upright supports and the hold down in the center, and believe it or not, it actually works. I was going to be cutting vinyl this afternoon for some painting templates for the engine section and the dome, the command module, but lucky me, I had a order. Let me turn around so you can look at me. Lucky me, I had an order come in for some templates, so the plotter is otherwise occupado, and if I get that done and cut out and put together in time this afternoon, I may yet still do some painting or some plotting at least for the rest of the Discovery. We'll see how the rest of the afternoon avails itself. Okay, as it turns out, I did have some time, so what I'm going to do is do a very preliminary pass on the command module and the neck piece, just as a warm-up for what I'm going to do later. And there is a prevailing school of thought about how to paint this. Yes, if you go break it down panel by panel, there are very specific color matches for, this panel should be this color and this panel should be that color. I don't know how closely I'm going to be sticking to that. I am more interested in an overall look. And the method of doing this is, rather than using a ton of very subtle grays and putting them on very painstakingly, prevailing wisdom seems to indicate that what is better to do is to over paint the panels. I mean, really paint them a lot darker that they're going to end up being, and then you put a unifying blending white coat over the whole deal at the end, and that kind of ties all the colors together and brightens them, dulls them down, gets rid of the contrast, and unifies everything at the same time. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because to me it's easier just to mix up 2 or 3 very obvious shades of gray and then unify them at the end than it would be to try to come up with 120 different colors of gray. So let's try it out. Okay, this is kind of the idea. Now this is only the first pass, so forgive it. It is in that what the hell have you done stage. But by picking out a panel here or there and selectively painting it a different tone of gray, a little bit more restrained on the collar piece. I kind of went hog wild on the command module, a little bit more restrained here. Now put some more different layers of the grays, and this is actually all the dark sea gray, and I think I may want to try a cooler gray on top of that, or and some warm grays maybe, just to break it up some. And I'm not going to paint the whole thing, but it'll end up getting an overall coat of white on top of it, and that will hopefully bring it back to what we all know and love as what the Discovery actually looks like. Okay, that's going to wrap up another weekend. A little bit of weekend interruptus. I had to order to get out, so that kind of bit into my plotting or into my painting time. So I did not get back very much to the Shaun of the Dead bust this week. Did some a little bit of work kind of off camera that I'll catch up with next week. But I've started down the long road on the Discovery. I got the base done. Got a lot of work done, and again, not going to be an overnight project like some smaller ones that I've built. So we'll pick this up again next week. So until then, have a good week.
I feel much better now. I really do.